If you're a veteran, you know the numbers. 10%, 50%, 70%. Those are the VA disability ratings, and they can completely change your life. But how the VA actually comes up with those numbers, well, that can feel like a total black box. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify the VA's rating code.
Right, so let's just get straight to it. This is the big question, isn't it? You've got a diagnosis, you're dealing with the symptoms every day, but how in the world does that become a specific number? Is someone just throwing a dart at a board? The good news is no. There really is a system, there's a logic, and most importantly, there's a rule book.
And here it is. This is the playbook. Every single rating decision the VA makes is supposed to follow the rules in this document. It's called the Schedule for Rating Disabilities, and it lays out the entire framework. And you know what? This isn't some top-secret internal memo. It's a public document. Just knowing that this rulebook exists is the first step to making sense of your own rating.
So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down. First, we'll crack the basic code of a claim. Then, we'll get into what those percentages actually measure. We're also going to talk about the incredible power of your medical exam. And of course, we'll decode the infamous VA math. And finally, we'll tie it all together to show you why knowing this stuff puts you in the driver's seat.
Okay, let's start at square one. Before we can even think about a percentage, the VA has to agree that your condition is service-connected. And to do that, you need to build a really solid foundation for your claim. The VA is looking for proof of these three things. Think of it like a three-legged stool. First leg, you need a current diagnosed disability, something you're dealing with right now. Second leg, you need to point to an injury, an illness, or some event that happened while you were in the service. And the third leg, the one that holds it all together, is the nexus, the link that connects that in-service event to your current disability. You need all three or the whole thing falls over.
All right, let's say you've established service connection. Now we get to the percentage. So what does a 50% rating for PTSD really mean? Is it just a measure of how bad it is? Well, not exactly. The rating actually measures something very, very specific. The VA's own rules call it an evaluative rating. It's just their official term for a system that's designed to turn a medical condition into a number. But the whole system, the entire schedule, is guided by one core principle. And honestly, this is the most important thing to get your head around in this whole process.
And there it is, straight from the rulebook. A VA rating is, at its heart, an economic assessment. Let me say that again. It's not just about your pain or your symptoms. It's about how that condition, on average, impacts a veteran's ability to get and keep a job and earn a living. This idea is the key that unlocks everything else.
So if the ratings are all about higher disability affects your ability to function and work, how does the VA figure that out? It all comes down to your medical evidence, and specifically that compensation and pension exam, what everyone calls the C&P exam.
Now, what's so powerful here is that the VA's own regulations demand this. It's not enough for an exam to say, yep, has a bad back. No way. The rules say the exam must paint a clear picture of how that disability limits your daily activities. Your story gets told through that exam.
And this slide shows you exactly what they're looking for. It's all about functional loss. How far can you actually move your arm before it hurts? Do you get exhausted after walking a short distance? This is the kind of information that gets captured on a form called a Disability Benefits Questionnaire, or DBQ. These DBQs are basically detailed checklists for the examiner, tailored for each specific condition to make sure they document things like pain, weakness, and lack of endurance. These details are the raw data that the VA rater uses to assign your percentage.
Okay, let's wade into the topic that drives everyone crazy, VA math. This is where you can have a 50% rating and a 30% rating, but somehow your combined rating isn't 80%. It feels like it makes no sense, but believe it or not, there is a method to the madness. This is the classic question, right? You'd think you'd just add the numbers up. It's simple arithmetic. But that's not how the VA system works, because they're not looking at it as just adding problems together. They're looking at the whole person.
Okay, here's the concept. The VA starts by thinking of a veteran as being 100% whole or efficient. Your highest rated disability gets applied first. So if you have a 50% disability, you're now considered 50% efficient. Your next rating, say 30%, is applied to the remaining 50%, not the original 100. So it's 30% of 50, which is 15. It's a cascade, not simple addition.
So this is how it actually goes down. First, they put all your ratings in order from highest to lowest. Then they take the top two and combine them using a special chart in the regulations. This gives them a new, unrounded number. They take that number and combine it with your third highest rating, and on down the list. Only after every single disability is combined do they take the final number and round it to the nearest 10%.
Let's look at the VA's own example to make this real. Say a veteran has 3 ratings, 60, 40, and 20%. First, they combine the 60 and the 40. Using the VA's table, that comes out to 76%. Now you take that 76 and combine it with the last rating, the 20%. That combination gives you 81%. Finally, for the last step, you round 81 to the nearest 10, which means it rounds down to a final combined rating of 80%. See? Not 120.
So we have gone through a lot here. The pillars of a claim, what the ratings actually measure, why your exams are so critical, and the weird logic of VA math. So why should you care? Because knowing this stuff turns that feeling of confusion into a feeling of empowerment.
So, what are the big takeaways? First, remember, VA ratings are about economic impact, so you have to frame your evidence around how your condition affects your ability to function and to work. Second, your medical exams are everything. The little details about your functional limitations are what drive the rating, not just the name of your diagnosis. And third, VA math isn't random, it's a predictable system. When you understand these rules, you can see your claim the way the VA sees it, and you can prepare a much stronger case.
At the end of the day, the VA disability system is built on a foundation of laws and regulations. It's not some unsolvable puzzle. By understanding the language it speaks, the language of functional loss and economic impairment, you are so much better equipped to navigate it successfully. So the real question is, now that you know the rules of the game, how are you going to use them to make sure your story gets told fully and accurately?